Hey, Matt, I got a joke for you.
Oh, funny joke?
It's really funny.
Okay, hit me.
All right. I haven't even gotten to the funny part yet.
Oh.
Okay, what do the Los Angeles Rams and possums have in common?
They both have long tails.
That and
They hang upside down.
they both play dead at home and get killed on the road.
That's good. I like that. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to 2M Football.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Matt, and we're just kidding about the Rams thing. We just thought it was funny.
Yeah, it's fun to take a shot. No, we like the Rams. Now that Jeff Fisher's gone, I'm a fan.
Yeah, and I think they're looking forward to a good rebuilding season now that they've gotten some things at home taken care of. But as we're about to find out, they do need some help.
They do. The Rams were 4-12 last year. Their first season without the St. Louis city attached to their name in a while. And 4-12 was good enough for third in the NFC. I knew it was going to happen.
Yeah, eventually, but it took three
I thought it would
shows.
be you. I thought it would be you.
Well, what's that supposed to mean? I'm the incompetent one?
Didn't I fire you last time?
I'm like a bad penny I always turn up.
Third place in the NFC West. And it was kind of a weird year for the Rams. So they drafted Jared Goff with the number 1 overall pick in last year's draft. But they said they were going to redshirt him, which made sense. Case Keenum was the guy under center for the first 10 weeks, but as they kept losing, pressure kept mounting from the fan base to start the rookie. And then, of course, Jeff Fisher, Mr. 8-8 himself, was finally fired in early December, and we did get to see some of Goff in the final month of the season. And then, on January 12th, the team hired their new head coach, Sean McVay, who used to be the offensive coordinator for the Redskins from 2014 through 2016. And at age 31, he's the youngest head coach in league history. He brought in Wade Phillips to be the defensive coordinator, and Matt LaFleur, ex-Falcons QB coach.
Why did you look at me like that?
I don't know. You have the French mustache thing going on. I thought you'd like it.
Oui, oui.
And he'll be the offensive coordinator. But apparently McVay is going to be the one calling the plays. And I think all this overhaul is going to be good for them. It was definitely time for them to make a change. And with another high draft pick this year, they can start addressing, which, as you'll see, the many holes in this roster.
But I think it's also a sign because I heard a lot of people have been talking about Goff, and he made several reports that he's working with some star coaches in the offseason, that like he's going to QB camps and places that like people like Matt Ryan and Tony Romo went to, which shows that he's driven to work for this team.
He wants this, for sure.
And I think that's always great to see.
And he'll probably almost definitely be the week 1 starter next year in his second season. And we have to hope for his sake that they can get a more talented roster on the offensive side of the ball to help him out with that. As evidence of how bad this offense was last year, let's take a look at their offensive stats.
It sucks.
It's pretty bad. They averaged 14 points per game, dead last in the league. 263 total yards per game, also last in the league.
Oh, what a surprise.
184 pass yards per game.
Oh, wait.
Second to last.
Oh, no.
And 78 rush yards per game.
Wait.
Second to last.
No.
So things were pretty bad across the board on offense. And, well, let's just start with Goff. We won't waste time talking about Keenum. He's a free agent. He's not coming back, I think.
Bye.
But yeah, see you later. So Goff ended up starting 7 games. He looked pretty rough, which isn't surprising. He completed 112 out of 205 passes, 55%, 1,089 yards, 5 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and 2 fumbles lost.
So kind of what you expect out of a rookie.
Right, you don't expect him to come in and light up the...
No Dak Prescott, but...
No, but also no supporting cast similar to what Dak Prescott had.
I like him though.
It's hard to say with just based on what we saw from him last year.
But what I want to see out of these guys is the drive to want to do better, the drive to read the book, the drive to watch the film. Like, even though I think they personally waited too long to start him, And when you're at the end of a season, like the team's not doing well at all, there's major head coaching changes, you're kind of put in a position where you're in the midst of chaos.
Right.
And now all of a sudden the fan base wants you out there, and then you're like, that's a lot of pressure. You've been benched for 10 weeks. Quote unquote being groomed, which I don't know how well that grooming really went.
I don't know either.
So I can't blame Goff on his performance entirely.
Mm-hmm.
He came in a really rough time, no wide receiver core, and did what he could.
Yeah.
But I see great potential, and I see that he could be this franchise's quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so won't get too much into the game film analysis because I think with all the work he's doing this offseason, he'll be kind of a different quarterback next year.
I think so.
And for the better, probably.
Under Sean McVay, yeah. I think McVay's going to work with him really well because look what he did with Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, and LaFleur did with Matt Ryan.
Yep.
So
he's in good hands.
He's in great hands.
Much better than he started with Fisher. And future could be bright. He's got great help in the backfield from a guy named Todd Gurley.
Well, you would think that, but this season...
Well, yeah. He had a really good rookie season in 2015 with 4.8 yards per carry and a lot of big plays, but that production fell off a cliff this past year. Gurley has the talent. He should be one of the best backs in the league, but he's brought down by the fact that this offense has no even threat of a passing game right now. I think that really hurt him this past year.
Their top receiver, and I know we'll get to this, Kenny Britt, only had 68 receptions. What are you going to do with an offense that, if that's your highest reception leader, that isn't the world's?
And he's gone now.
Yeah. Oh, don't even. No, I don't even want to.
But on Gurley, he's a great talent. He's very prototypical running back, but he needs help. He needs help from the rest of this offense, especially the offensive line, which they've already taken some steps to address, which is good to see. But let's jump to the receivers for a minute. They signed. Well, yeah, you mentioned Kenny Britt, their leading receiver last year, was a free agent, and they let him go. Cleveland signed him. To replace him, they signed Robert Woods from the Bills, which I agree with.
I think that's an interesting...
It's a good signing, but he's not a number one. They signed him for 5 years and $39 million.
God, can I organize a contract like that?
Yeah, Matt, we could all use a piece of this money. And Woods is pretty good. He had 40 or more catches in each of his 4 years with the Bills. But as I said, not sure if he can be a number one because he's not that big-bodied receiver that Britt is.
Yeah, well, but look at Seattle. They make do with their...
They do, as we just talked about, yeah.
So I think it all depends on how they decide to run their offense.
Because Woods is a guy who can run good routes. He plays the slot and outside position both. He runs all different routes. He has decent speed. He has good hands. So he's a good receiver. There's no doubt about that. We'll see how he transitions to this offensive play calling scheme.
Well, I think the one thing they have in their advantage is because they don't have a clear dedicated number one, like with Jacksonville and Allen Robinson's big breakout, like defenses weren't ready for it. Mm. So I think because like everyone knows Gurley is the main threat here, this receiving core with the addition of Woods has the potential to catch defenses off guard. And I'm sure Sean McVay is going to take big advantage of that.
Definitely.
And at least for the first year, they should come out sort of catching everybody off guard. Because like you said, Goff is going to work out in the offseason, come back completely different.
Mm-hmm. Another guy they've got playing receiver is Tavon Austin. They've always tried to use him as this gadget player, similar to...
Go gadget?
Yes. Go gadget, -2 yards rushing. They're trying to use him the way that we saw the Chiefs use Tyreek Hill. They try to throw it to him on screens. They give it to him on handoffs.
And make the yards after the catch.
It just doesn't work for him. He's small and fast, but I just don't think he's a good runner.
He's not physical enough
he's
like
not
Tyreek
physical.
Hill.
Yeah, Hill is bigger. He can break through some tackles. So Austin had 58 catches for 500 yards and 3 touchdowns. Also 28 rushes for 150 yards and 1 touchdown with a career low 5.7 yards per carry. Like I said, they've been trying to do this forever with him. His whole career, make Austin into this, like I said, gadget player. I just don't think it's working.
I feel like it's a very situational based thing. Like, you're in field goal range and you're trying to gain a few more yards, so you attempt it, knowing that even if you get knocked back 5 yards, you're still within range. And that's about the only time they should try to pull that play off.
Yeah. I don't think they should use Austin this way. I think he could be similar. I don't think he's as talented, but I think he could be similar to what the Packers do with Randall Cobb. Make him a receiver full-time. Don't do these handoffs. They're not fooling anybody. But have him work the slot, work the middle of the field. And I know he's a small guy. He might get banged around a little bit doing that. But he has the speed to get through linebacker coverage. And so running him across the middle on slants, on in routes, on posts, I think he'll be more effective if they just use him as a pure receiver and stop trying to make him into this running back hybrid, because it's not working. And
so he's not Ty Montgomery is what you're saying?
No. He's definitely not Ty Montgomery.
God, are we just going to light this up with Packer references since we're in the NFC conference?
Yeah, I like it. By the time we get to the Packers show, we'll have mentioned everyone already in comparison to someone else, so we can just not even do that one. All right, that's the end of my Tavon Austin rant. Another receiver who was with the team last year is Brian Quick, who's a free agent.
Is he quick?
Yeah. No. Ironically enough, he's not that fast. But he is that 6'3", 218-pound receiver that I think he has the build to be a number one receiver, but he's never really performed like one. He's been with the Rams his whole 5-year career. Last year was his best season, with still not very productive, with just 41 catches, 560 yards, and 3 touchdowns. We don't know if he'll get re-signed at this point. I think they should re-sign him.
At this point, you got to start focus on continuity and trying to build these guys up.
Yeah, I think this could be a really interesting receiving corps if you got Quick as the number one, Woods across from him, and Austin 2 working the slot.
I could see that. And
could
then Gurley is also a great threat out of the backfield
and can catch.
The one thing I am seeing a lack thereof, are you going to touch on this?
The tight end?
Yeah.
Yes. We
Excellent.
can move over there right now, actually. Lance Kendricks was actually pretty productive as a pass catcher last year.
Is over here good enough?
What was that?
I moved over here.
Farther.
How's this?
Okay. Kendricks, but they just released him. That's what I think. I'm really confused right now. The good news is they have a young guy that they just drafted last year in the 4th round named Tyler Higbee. And he didn't do a whole lot this season. He had just 11 catches, 85 yards, 1 touchdown, played in a pretty limited role behind the now departed Kendricks. But he was pretty highly regarded coming out of the draft, and maybe he has the potential to be the number one. We'll see, because the only other guy on the roster is a guy named Tamarick Hemingway, who I wrote down his name, but I know nothing about him.
He's not even on my receiving statistics.
Okay. So it could be that he's the blocking tight end.
Potentially, yeah.
And then moving on to the offensive line, their biggest problem was left tackle Greg Robinson, and they made a great signing, in my opinion, and Andrew Whitworth. If you remember, we talked about him on the Bengals show. He's 35 years old, but he's still an amazing left tackle.
It's a huge loss for the Bengals because that offensive line is now garbage. They lost 2 of their players.
Yeah, it's bad, but the Rams get to benefit. And they will, because Whitworth is a great player, and he'll do a fine job protecting Goff, protecting the blind side. He's right-handed, right?
I think so.
So Whitworth will do a good job protecting his blind side, and also trailblazing for Gurley.
Insert correction here if wrong.
Yeah, we'll see.
I do want to make this mention because we don't get to talk about them, and we make a lot of fun of them. But their best offensive weapon, and this is going to come as a shock, is Johnny Hecker, their punter. And I know this seems weird to say, but let me justify it.
Well, the Rams punt a lot, first of all.
Well, he's gotten practice. But it's the way he punts. His hang time is ridiculous. Every game I watched, he had a hang time of like 4.5, 5 seconds, which allows the special teams to close. And watching them just nail the player right when they catch the football is exciting.
And that's really important when you're playing a game of field position, which, as we'll get to, the strength of this team right now, if there is one, is probably the defense, not the offense. And if you want to play that kind of defensive struggle, the field position battle is so important. And
the other offensive player I want to mention is Greg Zerloin. Just because of his name.
Greg the Leg.
Listen to some of the announcers go, and Zerloin's kick is good. I don't know. But no, he's a good kicker. And I think that, they had their work cut out for them this season, and I don't think that's fair. But I think they should see a balance now with Goff going through some actual training. And between
getting an
McVay
offensive line, an actual offensive line.
And building the receiver core. I mean, I think they're a couple years down the road from being competitive.
Agreed.
But there's nothing saying that they're not already starting to move in a good direction. And I think that bringing in a young head coach is always a risk, but they see something in McVay. And because he's offensive-minded and they have a first-round draft pick, overall draft pick, in Jared Goff, they need him to succeed.
Right.
Because if he doesn't, they've blown a lot of years of work.
Yeah,
but I think Goff is going to come out much better.
I think so, too.
And I'm excited.
It really is more the exception than the rule that a rookie quarterback actually plays well. It doesn't happen very often. I always get worried when they do. Like, Dak Prescott has me worried because he had such a phenomenal first year. Mm-hmm. He has a lot to live up for, more than like Carson Wentz, who struggled his rookie year. Definitely. Came out hot, but then he went through the growing pains of being a rookie quarterback. Lots of turnovers, interceptions, mistakes, but you're growing. But you have more pressure as a quarterback who comes out slinging and hot. Mm-hmm. Expectations are high.
Yeah.
He set a really high bar for himself.
But Goff went through the pains, and I don't think he received much training. I can't verify that. I wasn't in the film room with them, but he didn't look like someone who had any technical idea what was going on. And that's not necessarily his fault.
No, I don't think it is. I think the organization is in a better direction now. Mm-hmm. The coaching staff, the new coaching staff is better, and this whole team is going to be better prepared to play football in 2017.
Especially back where they're originally from. That's huge.
Mm-hmm. So you got some defense notes? Sorry, I took way too long.
Well, this episode is going to be long because I do have things I need to address on the defensive end of the ball.
Perfect. Let's get to it.
So the LA Rams defense wasn't that bad. The only thing they struggled with is allowing the most points. Not in the league, but they were 23rd overall, allowing 25 points per game. 9th in yards with 337, 10th in passing yards with 233, and 16th with rushing yards of 104. So they weren't terrible. Mm-hmm. The biggest problem with this defense is its discipline. Penalty-wise, they're not terrible. They weren't in the top list. The most penalized player in the league was Josh Norman. What a surprise. But just week one, the first week of the season, the first game of the new 2016 NFL season, and Aaron Donald gets ejected from the game.
I remember that, yeah.
That set the tone right there of what this team was going to do, and it's just unacceptable. They had the most players ejected in the NFL with 2 players ejected, and a total of 11 players across the league ejected.
Oh, wow.
The ejections were on a record high, like a record roll this year, especially because now the rule is 2 unsportsmanlike conduct penalties and you're gone.
Yep.
Of their top 10 penalized players on the team, 7 of them were defensive players. Usually what I've noticed in penalties is there's a lot of balance. There's, offensive holding is the number 1 called penalty in the NFL. It's just, that's the way it is. There's no way around it. But to have 7 of your 10 most penalized players all defensive says something that your defense just isn't working properly.
Yeah.
The new defensive coordinator, however, will be strict to insert that discipline.
Wade Phillips. And he was with Dallas for a while.
And Wade Phillips is a very strict coach.
Yeah.
And he will make sure this does not. To show you just how undisciplined they are, as the most recent news, as of 3/6, their defensive tackle, Wes Brooks, was arrested. I mean, it's not just on the field, it's off the field too.
Yeah.
And it's just you can't have a defense like this. Their offense is struggling. You can't be forcing penalties. You can't be getting thrown out of games. Mm-hmm. Aaron Donald was Defensive Player of the Year last year. That's a high expectation you've set for yourself, a high bar to set for yourself. And now you go and get ejected in the first game of the year. If I was a coach, I'd be livid. Mm-hmm. That's unacceptable. And they didn't address this discipline. To me, it just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And you need to see that. These penalties need to be cut down because you're giving up field position. You're giving up points. If an offense realizes they can just as easily get you on a penalty as a score, well, they're going to go the easier route. They're going to get you to bite on a penalty.
Yep.
I mean, it's a no-brainer. I forgot to do this while you were talking about the offense. But week 4 versus Arizona, I have the note here that in the fourth quarter with 10 minutes to go, Kesey Keenum threw a 23-yard completion for a first down, but he wouldn't go down. And this was an example of the defense just struggling at times. Like, as good as they are, their pass rush just sucked at times to be playing. Like, they couldn't get to the quarterback at times, and it just doesn't help. And they were very weak against draws and RPOs, so they bit on the inside a lot, and that opened up the edges for just easy completions. Like Buffalo was a good
example.
Yeah, thank you. I'm struggling over here. The one thing I don't think they need to get rid of is Dominique Easley, which is their 4-3 defensive end. This is his first year with the Rams. He had 35 tackles, 3.5 sacks, a pass deflection, and 2 forced fumbles. And the best thing I noticed about him is he has good hands placement. He puts his hands in the center of the guard's chest, or tackle's chest. And I saw 2 sacks that he got, which were coverage sacks, where he just drove the tackle back and waited for the quarterback to step up to try to make a play. And then what was really interesting to watch was he just took one hand and would almost push the guy away and grab the quarterback with one hand. And once you get a hold of them, it can be a really easy sack.
Yeah.
So his hand, he's very good with his hand. And as a free agent, I think he should stay. But the overall problem with this defense is just discipline. And if they shore up the discipline, it should complement the offense really well. And I think as a whole, this team will grow. And under Wade Phillips, I see discipline as being the number one thing they're going to work on.
Yeah, I think so. Phillips has been around the league for a long time. He's
very
not
old
gonna
school.
He's not going to take crap from these guys. And they have some good pieces in place. Like Aaron Donald, despite his discipline issues, like you said, Defensive Player of the Year a couple years ago, he's a dynamic player. Robert Quinn is still a pretty good edge rusher for these guys at defensive end. Jermaine Johnson is a pretty good corner. There are some pieces here, I guess, is the point. They're going to need to address safety position because they've got TJ McDonald entering free agency. I personally think he should come back because he's only 26 years old. But
Draft.
Yeah, they could. That's definitely true.
Draft has a few good safeties and several good corners. Let me see if I can cheat real quick while Mike is buying me time. Do I have one here?
The Rams have a high draft pick.
Never mind.
Okay. You don't need me to buy you anything?
No, because I have notes for the 49ers, but they're cornerbacks.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But the draft does have good safeties in there. I'm trying to think of... My brain's just not working today doing this recording episode. I'm sorry, everybody. But they do have some good safeties in there. And actually, some of their corners that could play safety, like I'm going to bring up his name just because I want to. Marshawn Lattimore is considered the number 1 overall cornerback in the draft. 6 foot, 193 pounds. He's just solid. The only problem is at 6 foot even, he's kind of small, which doesn't sound small, but when you've got 6'3", 210 pound receivers.
Yeah.
But I mean, they got some guys that are quick and can go up and make tackles. So if they can't, I wouldn't be necessarily concerned if they can't hunt down free agency and find somebody. They could definitely draft one.
So the Rams actually do not have a first round pick this year. It was involved in a trade last year. So their first pick is 5th in the 2nd round, so 37th overall. Just to set the record straight on that. I forgot that happened.
Okay, Landry Jones.
Don't bring that. I already apologized for that on air. We don't need to keep bringing that up. Yeah, if that's all you got on the defense.
That's all I got.
It's time for the TLDW segment. Too long, didn't watch. Rams underwent... I'm collecting myself. Rams underwent some major turnover this year. They had, and not just interceptions. Okay, left track. They had Jared Goff, their number 1 overall pick, starting, but not until 11 weeks into the season. They fired their head coach, Jeff Fisher, finally. They've got a whole new coaching staff led by Sean McVay, who used to be the Redskins offensive coordinator. Still got a good running back in Todd Gurley. Jared Goff was very rough this year, but that's not surprising, and he's working hard this offseason to come back better next year. They've got some issues at receiver. Despite signing Robert Woods, they lost Kenny Britt. I think they should retain Brian Quick and stop trying to make Tavon Austin a thing. As a running back, at least. these Inspector Gadget plays. And they made a great splash in free agency already by signing Andrew Whitworth, that's something I'm really happy about for them. And on the defensive side,
I think it's just a lot of discipline issues, and with Wade Phillips, I think that's going to correct itself. They do have a lot of potential. Aaron Donald is a good player, but you don't want to be known as the first guy ejected in the first game of the new year, because to me that sets a tone. That first game you play in sets the tone for your team, and if it goes down like the way it did, and I mean they beat the 49ers. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I had to pause for a second there.
Yeah, they did.
And I think they expected after seeing that game that maybe this was going to go rather well, and it went sideways ridiculously fast.
No, other way around. They got shut out by the 49ers.
Oh, wow, that's great. Let's just make more mistakes on air.
This has been a rough show. The editor will get all this stuff and make us look good. And then, losing 28-0 also set a tone for the season.
So, yeah, there we go. Ejected and 28-0. So, yep. So but it's definitely a rebuild season.
And they're going to be better already starting next year. Not contending for the division title, better, but better.
I agree.
And on the right track.
So thank you all for joining us through this rough episode of the Rams. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
This division is just, the bottom two teams are garbage in different ways, but we expect a lot of changes coming.
Yeah.
And changes that have already happened while we've been doing this. So, but if you like what you heard or didn't like, let us know below in the comments. Click the like button anyway. Subscribe, because I promise not all episodes will be this erratic or this long anymore. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, anything you want to email us, the link for that is below. You can check us out on Twitter
at 2M_football,
where you can follow us in all of our updates as we continue our trek through the NFC conference, the free agency frenzy going on, and the draft coming up. And we will see you all next time.
See ya.